This happened to my mum, sister and me many years ago. I was about 8 then, I'm 37 now, and my sister is 5 years younger. Back then we lived in a city in the UK, in a not so nice part of town. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't the ghetto or Wild West, but there were nicer places to live. A bit of background information to the story. My dad was self-employed, owned a small factory on the outskirts of the city centre about 5 miles from home. The factory is surrounded by wasteland homes, to mostly derelict and broken buildings. The area was grey, dirty, and covered in graffiti. Hell, not even the city homeless would take refuge here. One day, my dad calls my mum at home. He needed her to come home to the factory to help finish a job, but they only had one car, so it meant us getting the bus. I don't mind. My 8-year-old self was full of adventure and loves the idea of riding the bus to big town. The bus ride's uneventful as we brave the city traffic, eventually going through a forested area, then arriving at our stop. The described earlier, it's not the type of place people go unless they have a specific reason, so it wasn't surprising we're the only ones getting off here. We started in the direction of my dad's factory, which was just under a mile from the bus stop. My sister's asleep in the pushchair as I was jabbering away, when suddenly I become aware my mum's preoccupied. I look at her, but she said, "Keep walking." I noticed she glanced over her shoulder near the tree line. I slowed down, but she tugs my arm and says keep going. I remembered feeling anxious as my mum walks faster, pushchair bumping over uneven slabs. Then I heard him. First the footsteps, clumsy and heavy, then his raspy voice. He was muttering incoherently, having a conversation with, I guess, himself. Suddenly my mum crosses the road, holding my arm tightly, while steering the pushchair. He crosses the road too. My mum's cursing under her breath. We cross again. Whenever you think you're being followed, there's always a nagging doubt you're paranoid. But when we cross the same road for the 4th time in 5 minutes and this guy's still following us, I knew it was on. This was back in the 80s, no mobile phones, no internet and no SOS texts. You're really off grid. But now I can feel adrenaline. We're approaching a T-junction. My dad's factory is only around the corner, but it's about 500 yards away. If you didn't know where you were, you'd assume you're heading further into the ghost town. As we turn the corner, my mum told me to run as fast as I can to get my dad. I hear my mum and the pushchair thundering behind me. My heart is pounding. I ran like my life depended on it. My feet are crunching on broken glass. I don't dare slow down. I could see the small road ahead leading to a car park of the factory. I knew what I had to do. I shout for my dad as loud as I can. My throat is burning as I gulp for air. Hot tears stain my red cheeks. I burst in the door crying and my dad comes out running. He grabs the nearest object and ran towards the car park. I stood looking out there, watching my dad sprint across the car park. I see the pushchair too. My mum told my dad where we'd been followed and points in the direction, and my dad took off. He come back 10 minutes later. The creepy guy's nowhere to be seen. My dad said he probably ran off when he heard me shouting. With all the old empty buildings and wasteland, it's easy to disappear, even into the woods. My dad wanted to take the car and drive around to try and find him, but my mum doesn't want to be alone, even in the sanctuary of the factory, so he agreed to finish up the job, and we all drove home. My parents never reported it to the police. Living in a major city, you get all kinds of unsavoury characters, but the police wouldn't have done anything because he never harmed us. He never got the chance. We think he's probably very high or very unwell mentally. Either way, it scared the life out of us. My father sadly died and I needed to clear my head, so went on a solo trip to a cabin in Oregon with my dog. Now, I had a couple of weird things happen. My Pop-Tart incident still trips me out, but I think I can write that one off as maybe someone messing with me. But here's my story. I'll be the first to say that all of this could have happened in my head, like with anything. The mind's a freaky place and can play tricks on you. Now, whenever I was scared as a kid, my dad always told me that in life, you shouldn't be scared of ghosts. Fear the living, they'll hurt you. In my late teenage years, I come into some money after my father committed suicide and I received an inheritance from him. Near the time of my dad's passing, he and my mum owned a cabin in Oregon. The cabin had been put up for sale by my mum, who could no longer afford the payments or renting it out. The cabin was set to go on the market for sale in less than a month and was in the process of finalising a paperwork with the realtor and lawyer. So for that month's time, the cabin was not going to be rented out any longer and was going to be vacant. I saw this as a chance to get away for a while and clear my head in light of all things that were going on. I quit work, packed up snowboarding gear, grabbed my dog, and headed up in my dad's car that he had wheeled to me to the cabin. Now, this was our family cabin that my parents rented out throughout the year when they're not using it. I had keys to the cabin and also had the code to the alarm, so I didn't feel the need to stop at the rental management company and advise them of my stay. That has nothing to do with my story, but I felt the need to mention it anyway. The first few days of the cabin are normal, and nothing seems unusual. I spent my days playing with my dog in the snow, snowboarding, and in the evenings I played PlayStation or listened to music, drinking and smoking on the balcony. I already stocked up on food, cigarettes and liquor, so I was pretty much shut inside apart from the occasional venture out to the shops or the slopes. With my dog as company and my DVDs and PlayStation as entertainment, I was content and started to feel relaxed after all the drama that preceded my outing. The cabin itself was 2 stories. Bottom store had the living room and a side guest bedroom, along with the small kitchen. Upstairs had another 2 rooms, along with a walkout balcony attached to the master bedroom. Most of my time was spent either in the living room, kitchen or master bedroom. I never ventured into the other rooms and always kept the doors leading into them shut. Open doors to darkness scares me. Anyhow, the 3rd day came around. I was going through my usual routine of playing with my dog, playing games, etc. It was pretty heavy snowfall out, and I didn't feel like trekking down the hill to the main road in my car and decided to stay in. That's when things started getting a bit weird. In our area, there's only 2 other cabins adjacent to ours, maybe a block away from one another. All other cabins aside from these 2 are a mile away from ours, surrounding us with mostly forestry and very tall pine trees. Both these cabins are empty from the past couple of days from what I knew, and no one's currently there. Now, that's some background and I'll jump to the weirdness. Around midday, while outside with my dog, I noticed what appears to be footprints in the snow around the area surrounding our cabin. It was still snowing, so the footprints looked semi-fresh, like someone's been there in the last half hour before me. I thought that maybe someone was staying in the cabin near me that I haven't noticed. Maybe they were shut-ins like me. Well, alright, whatever. The prints lead away from the cabin, but disappear in the snow towards the tree line. Disregarding the footprints, I went back inside. Nighttime came around and I decided to head to bed. My dog Midnight was laying on the bed with me when I noticed his ears perk up. This was followed by him quickly jumping off the bed, running downstairs to the living room. I lay in bed and stay silent. I can hear him moving around downstairs, back and forth. After around 5 minutes, he ran back upstairs to me, starts doing his doggy dance, as a sign that he needs to pee or wants to go outside for something. Oh, well, fine. I can't say no to him, so we both went downstairs to the outside driveway for him. He didn't want to pee though. As soon as he gets outside, he started to pull on his leash, trying to drag me to where he wanted to go. He kept looking into the dense part of the trees where the prints had been earlier, but he also kept sniffing the side of the house and looking up towards the roof. That's really odd. After he figured out that I'm not going anywhere near it, he sat down and just stares into the darkness. This is a bit unusual for him, but alright. Maybe there are forest animals out there that he wants to chase down, but screw this. Do not want to chance anything, so I pull him back inside and we both head back upstairs. Around half an hour later, I was lying in bed when I hear what sounded like hoofs walking on my roof. It was only a series of around 6 steps, and I rationalised that it could have been a pine cone falling from a tree onto the roof, or maybe a kind-hearted forest animal running around. But here's the thing, the footsteps aren't spaced apart like a man's stride would be, so that was freaking me out. Midnight, I also heard the noise and was quick to run to the balcony screen door, expecting to see something, but there's nothing. Alright, you know what? I'm a tough guy and at the time considered myself fairly well built and strong enough to handle myself. I grabbed my coat and shoes along with my cigarettes and flashlight and went out on the balcony. Screw it, right? As soon as I was outside, I lit up my cigarette and started wondering what this could be getting onto the roof with my light. Nothing there, and snow on the top was undisturbed. Crazy. Maybe this is all in my head. What about the midnight before? I'm paranoid now. But I think it's in my mind and calmed down. My eyes started to adjust to the darkness, and I kept smoking and just staring at the stars and trees next to our cabin. That's when I saw it. In a tree that was little taller than our cabin, around 20 feet from the balcony, I saw what looked like a man crouched in a squatting position in between 2 branches. It was squatted on one branch with its arms extended above its head, holding onto the branch. Wow. What is that? I wasn't sure if I was really seeing that thing, and just stared motionless. I noticed Midlight stand up and start pacing behind me and lightly barking at the same time. The thing still did not move. I pulled my cigarette out and was debating on shining the light in that direction, but something in my head told me, don't. So I walked back towards the inside, pulling Midnight with me. Once inside, I locked the door and shined the light in the thing's direction, but nothing's there. I shut the curtains to the screen door and retreated back to bed. But later on in the night, I heard light tapping on the screen door like someone's tapping on the glass with their fingers. It was consistent and didn't stop for nearly an hour. Midnight stared at the door, but even he won't go near it. The craziest part for me is that I had the feeling that someone's inviting me to the door, but at the same time, I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head telling me to stay in bed and to not do it. I listened to my dad's voice and stay where I am. Eventually, I pass out and wake up and everything's normal. The rest of the week I spent there was uneventful, and nothing else out of the ordinary happened. I totally admit that it could have all been in my head, but the fact that my dog was acting up too makes me really worried about the whole situation. A bit of preface here. I was around 10 or 11 when this happened. Old enough to stay home alone, but not old enough to recognise some red flags. I attended camp over the summer, the typical 8 to 3 route. Now my house sits at the end of my street, which forms the U, but for some reason, the bus driver would never drop me off at my house. I would always get dropped off at the end of my street, where I would toddle myself all the way back. Both my parents work late hours, sometimes not getting back until 8 PM, and it would be very expensive to hire a babysitter for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So, starting 6th grade, when the bus dropped me off at home, I'd be by myself. I'd do the usual middle school routine, play games online and watch TV. Occasionally, my neighbour's cat would come into my backyard and I'd feed her or play with her. The only computer in the house was my dad's workroom one, which has a window overlooking a deck, and the window overlooking the side of the house. We have large bay windows in the living room, dining room, and kitchen of my home, and since we sit on a hill, you can pretty much see the entire backyard from a nice vantage point. So most days when I got home, I toss off my backpack and go right to that room, and you could see me walk from my front door and pop up by the computer from outside. Unfortunately, this would lead to something that I had forgotten about until now. When I got off the bus, I did as expected, go into my dad's workroom, play computer games. About 30 minutes into this, I hear a faint meowing coming from outside the window. I pause and look outside, thinking my neighbour's cat has wandered over, but when I get there I see nothing. I just sat back down and resumed playing, only to hear the meowing again. It was quiet but noticeable, and so I checked out the other window. Nothing. This routine happened for a good 10 minutes and eventually I get frustrated and go into the living room to watch TV. Not even 2 minutes later, meowing from the window I was sitting at happens again. Now I'm confused and a little creeped out, so I shut the blinds and keep trying to watch TV. The meows still go on, but only when they come from right behind me did I jump up and get scared and ready to leave. I went into my bedroom where the blinds were still down but cracked for sunlight. I tried to read a book, only to hear a meow come from outside my bedroom window now. This is enough to make me call my dad, concerned that maybe the cat was hurt, but I couldn't see it to be sure. He said he would have the neighbour come and check it out. 10 minutes go by. I get a call from my dad saying he's coming home from work. Nothing urgent about it, just that his job got cancelled and he's home early. I don't think anything of it. When he got home, I did realise the cat noises have stopped. Fast forward to the present and I asked my dad about the incident, thinking it's funny about how a cat scared me, but what he said next made my blood run cold. After I call him, my neighbour indeed did come and check out my house. What he found were large footprints circling the house, right next to the windows. Someone had been stalking me through my house, seeing where I was, making cat noises trying to lure me outside. They must have known I was home alone, since it was easy to see me. And they must have known that I played with the cat. My neighbour immediately called my dad and searched the property, but found no one. The police weren't called since there was nothing but footprints that led into the woods. I never saw anyone. My dad stayed home with me for the rest of the week. It sickens me to think that people would use those tactics to try and lure someone like my younger self out of their homes to do God knows what in the woods with them. I was driving to work. It's about a 5-hour drive. It was already dark, and about 3 hours of driving in, I start getting really tired. I bought myself a coffee and some snacks at a gas station and continue on, but snacks and coffee can only keep you awake for a certain amount of time, and I feel really dozy. This part of the road is nothing but thick pine wood around me. There's no other cars on the road or anything. Only insects smashing into my windshield now and then on the empty road. Now I'm extremely tired and at one point I nearly drove off the road for almost falling asleep. I have to sleep now. I can't wait for a gas station. I must stop or I'm gonna crash. Now, I have such an urgent feeling to find a place where I can stop. It felt like an hour, but it was probably about 5 minutes to go by, and I spot this little pocket in the road. It's like a parking space for quick stops, like peeing, switching drivers and stuff, not a resting area. I stop there, turn down my windows to check if I hear any weird noises, and there's total silence. I turn up my windows again. Nothing bad's gonna happen. I haven't seen a car for like 30 minutes and the road's empty. If someone's checking out my car, I bet it's the cops checking on me to see if I'm okay. I leave my keys in the ignition and lock the doors, just to be safe. I adjust my seat a bit and make it comfortable to sleep in, and I take off my shoes and put them on the passenger seat to the right. It was so nice, and I close my eyes and instantly fall asleep. Now I don't know why, but something wakes me up. I can't explain it. I can't really see anything. Some kind of bright light hits me in the eyes though. First I think it's a flashlight, but now I realise that it's the high beams of a car in my rear view blinding me. I look to my left and I see a dude walking up beside my car. Maybe he wants help with something. Should I make it clear to him that I'm here? He's right beside my left back door. Should I step out and ask what he's doing? I didn't have to. The dude proceeds to jerk and pull on my left door. I almost have a heart attack. He's trying to force his way in. My seat is adjusted to lay down, and I push it back as far as I can. I can reach the pedals, which makes it almost impossible for me to drive my car. I slam the horn and it breaks the silence with a roar and the dude jumps back. That gives me like 2 seconds to push my seat and reach the pedals, but it's still out of adjusting and I'm pulling myself really hard towards the steering wheel. Because my seat is lying flat, it's not supporting my back and it kind of hurts. Anyway, I start my car and drive, kinda, with a cloud of smoke. It's hard driving a car with nothing holding you up properly, but I manage. As soon as I look in my rear view, he stands up looking at me. And what's worse, I can see 2 more guys next to him. I can see the silhouette of their high beams. One of them has something in his hand like a crowbar. I drive super fast, way over the speed limit. I'm terrified. Then, I stop at a gas station to sort my seat out and put my shoes on. I figure out I was only asleep for like 10 minutes, which makes me worried that they were following me. I'm really worried now. I told my boss the next day and he actually said he's heard of problems like this all over Sweden before, where criminals will stop you and rob you or do worse things. I have never had anything like it in my life and it makes me terrified to stop when I'm driving again. This happened a long time ago. I was 12 and at my grandparents' village. We had a cow and an ox, and usually the son of the bull, usually just one, took all the cattle to graze at night and he would take them back. Cows know where to go when going home. My grandpa had a male ox, and since my father was an adult and he wasn't there, I took the responsibility. Basically, my job was to go around the village with the ox tailing after me, calling the people to open their doors. Our ox would grunt, and to call the herd, and all the females would then come out. From then on, I had to take them to a clearing up area in the mountain, and then take them by the river. It was easy. The animals knew where they were going. They were calm, and our bull was a gentle giant. All I did was have to ride him, with thin rope on his horns. If any of the females wandered off, all I did was call in or occasionally poke her with a stick in the right direction. My grandpa said that if I see a wild, very rare boar or fox, I should just stay on the ox. Not many animals dare to go near an ox herd. There is a dark part of the forest where it's very quiet, and even the bravest hunters won't go. It is slippery and dangerous. They said that even the deer and boar don't go there. I was forbidden to go there and honestly never wanted to. So during this event, it's during the morning and everything seems fine. I was on the ox going up the mountain. I was glad he let me because it was a hard trek up. I saw that one of the females was wandering off. I followed her and left our ox and the dogs to guide the herd. She went into the forest and I ran to her. I tried steering her away, but she continues. She went in the dark part and stopped. I didn't want to go off just in case she ran back and left me there. And then I heard a crunch and turn around. And a very old man is walking towards us. He looks frail with dirty clothes and has a long beard. I was scared. I'd never seen anything like this my entire time out there before. Now, I laid on the ox clinging to her, not wanting to fall if she ran. Oxes aren't like bulls. They don't jump or kick when scared. They either attack with their horns or run. I was ready to hold on no matter what she chose. Our oxen don't take kindly to strangers, and before I took them out in the mornings, they're always paranoid. Now that's a good thing though, because they trusted their owners. But knowing her, I knew she would either bolt or attack. But weirdly, she just stood there. The stranger then came to us and petted her on the head, whispering something I didn't understand. He looks at me, and his eyes are completely white. Then he turns around and disappears into the trees. Suddenly, the female grunted as though she had woken up now. It was crazy. I'd never seen her act like it before. She suddenly bolts away with cum and we found the herd. I quickly got on our ox and yelled water. He knew that command and went down towards the river. I then ran into one of the houses and tried to explain everything. The couple there stayed with me and sent their daughter to call my grandpa. I literally couldn't sleep for days remembering those white eyes. My grandparents wouldn't let me out of the house after that, even if it's just to play in the trees. Later I learned they were protecting me from a lesnik, a forest spirit which can take the form of a man or an owl or wolf. It hates when people go to his part of the woods and can kidnap you. I later learnt that the ox which took me there fallen ill and died almost immediately after. I used to do a ton of camping, but one night, still early on, I was up with two friends in the middle of the night, just hanging out in a field next to the campsite, looking at the stars and almost full moon. It was so bright outside, it's almost like a daytime moment. When suddenly, I noticed a faint whisper. I thought it was someone from camp, but no, it came from the other direction. We all went quiet and listened to the faintest hey, to which we follow, cross the field away from the camp, and the whispers grow louder, but ever so slightly. That's until we come across a road. Across the road was a fenced-in area, but it's got a pretty bad fence. It's easily crossed. On the other side of the fences was a small woods. The trees are spaced pretty far apart from each other, and the moonlight's not really doing much. Now, it's pretty dark out there, under the trees. You could barely see past the first few rows, and now, the voice is much louder, but still, as if someone's trying to whisper. A voice that sounds like a girl saying, "Come play." Craziest part is that there's no women with us on that trip, and we can just hear the sounds of a little girl whispering for us to come and play in the pitch blackness at 1 in the morning. We decided to not investigate any further,